Well, Representative-elect Gabe Evans is talking about his transition to Congress. Democrat Yadira Caraveo conceded in that race in Congressional District 8. A few votes are still being counted, but Evans is currently leading Caraveo by more than 2,000 votes. Evans talked around noon today. This is what he had to say.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all so much for coming today. Obviously, I'm Gabe Evans, and we've just wrapped up a really hard-fought campaign here in Colorado's 8th Congressional District. But before we get any further down that road, it is Veterans Day, and so I just want to make sure that we thank all veterans and we take a moment to remember their sacrifices, the sacrifices of those who are currently in our military, and the sacrifices of their family. My wife and I have been married for a little over 15 years. She was with me all 12 years that I was in the Army, and so we know that families serve right alongside our military men and women, and we just want to take a moment to honor and respect their service and the service of all who are currently in. And for me, that really is how my story started just a couple of generations ago. On my dad's side, the Evans side, my granddad was a career naval aviator, 20 years. On my mom's side, the Chavez side, my abuelito Chavez was born in Mexico, immigrated to this country for the American dream, served it in World War II, earned 2 Purple Hearts with Patton's Third Army fighting in Western Europe. And so that's how I was brought up. You love your country. You take care of your community. You do whatever is necessary to protect and preserve that American dream and pass it on to future generations. And that's been the story of my life. That's why I was a cop for 10 years. That's why I was a soldier for 12 years, to take care of my country, to take care of my community. Just, in fact, 3 years ago, I was a police officer working the night shift out in the city of Arvada, and that's what got me into politics, was seeing the issues that were going on in our community. We've heard the statistics all through the campaign. You know, unfortunately, Colorado is the 3rd most dangerous state right now in the country. We're number 2 for kids overdosing and dying on illegal drugs, predominantly fentanyl. We're number 1 in the nation for a lot of terrible things. We're number 1 for bank robberies. Almost 10% of bank robberies across the country right now are happening in Colorado. I saw those problems as a police officer, couldn't have the impact I wanted as a police officer, and so that's why I ran for and won my state house seat, and that's why I'm now so incredibly honored by the confidence and by the faith that the voters in Colorado's 8th Congressional District have instilled in me as their new representative-elect. In many ways, this was a tremendous victory for Colorado Republicans and for balance and for dialogue in the state. This is probably one of the, if not the biggest races in Colorado since 2014, when Cory Gardner flipped a U.S. Senate race. And if current projections hold, Colorado's 8th Congressional District is going to be one of only 4 seats across the entire country where a Republican challenger defeated an incumbent Democrat. But I don't really view this race as Team Republican versus Team Democrat. As a police officer, when folks called me, whatever my political party was, it didn't matter, and whatever their political party was, didn't matter. What mattered is that I was there to solve a problem, to work together for the community. My first year as a cop, I went to over 1,800 calls for service, and I made 41 arrests. And what I took away from that was 1,759 times out of 1,800, I was there to work together with anyone and everyone in the community to focus on what unites us rather than what divides us, and be able to mediate, solve a problem, refer to resources, do whatever was necessary to be able to make life better for everyone in the community. It's what I did as a police officer. I took that attitude down to the state capitol, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing in Congress. Through our campaign, we spoke to Republicans, we spoke to Democrats, we spoke to unaffiliateds, we spoke to third parties, and we found that common ground on the issues that defined this race. Making sure that we have a secure border, making sure that we're doing work to fix our broken immigration system for those who legally want to come to this country, as my grandfather did, and be a contributing part of the American dream. Working to ensure that we are a safe place for folks to raise their families again, working to correct the just tragic situation that's happening right now with us being the 3rd most dangerous state in the country. Working to make sure that we're lowering the cost of living, that folks can afford to be able to put gas in the car, food on the table, be able to send their kids to sports, be able to achieve that American dream of home ownership. These are the things that we focused on in the campaign. These are the things that unite us. These are the things that I'll continue to focus on in Congress. And for those who didn't vote for me, you know what? I am still going to work as hard as I possibly can for you, just as I did when I was in law enforcement, just as I did when I was in the military. And again, in those careers, your political party didn't matter. What mattered was accomplishing the mission, take care of the country, take care of the state, take care of the community, and that is the promise that I make to every single person in this district, whether you voted for me or not. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to the office. We will do everything that we can to help whatever issue or problem you may be facing. I'm so excited to be able to get to work in this district, to roll up my sleeves and work with some of my colleagues to fix these issues that we've talked about. To help me in that transition, today I'm excited to announce that Tyler Moore will be my new Chief of Staff. We'll be making additional staff announcements in the coming weeks, but during that transition period, for our friends in the media, you can still use Alan Philp for any of your media questions as your point of contact. We've got so many thank yous to go over that got us to this point. Too many to name them all, so I'm just going to call out a select few individuals so that we're not here all day, but truly from the bottom of my heart to everyone who participated in this campaign, who helped to get us to this point, who put in the blood, the sweat, the tears, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And first I want to thank my opponent for running a hard, well-fought campaign. We had a conversation yesterday. My hat is truly off to her. I know that was a difficult phone call to make, but we had a conversation where she offered me her congratulations, and I thanked her for her service, for her groundbreaking historical service as Colorado's first Latina in Congress. And then we had some of the details where we talked about making sure that we have a good transition from her office to mine so that none of our constituents have their cases dropped and we continue to serve seamlessly everyone in this district who has reached out to her office for assistance and making sure that those are transitioned to our office. I want to thank State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer, who was the Republican nominee 2 years ago for this district, and who was a trailblazer, who paved the way, and she is truly a giant here in Colorado Republican politics, and I am so honored to be standing on her shoulders today. Truly, I would not be here without all of the help and support that she gave through this campaign. To all of our volunteers, there's too many to mention, so if I don't name you, know that my deepest gratitude is with you. But Maria Weiss, Sandra Vera, Cindy Lombardi, Mark Morris, Carl Hoops, Robert Terry, Craig Sullivan, Heidi Pitchforth, just to name a few. We put together a fantastic team when I was a commander in the Army and a watch commander in law enforcement. I would always talk to my folks and I would make sure that they knew that they were the most critical asset that we had in the military or law enforcement. Helicopters don't fly themselves, police cars don't drive themselves without people, and it's the exact same thing without campaigns. We would not be here without the volunteers who donated countless hours, countless miles walked. I mean, we had volunteers that made over 12,000 phone calls, just one person. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to all those individuals. My campaign staff, for all of the work, for all of the long hours, for the way that we pulled together and that we gelled as a team, and for getting everything that needed to be done. Truly, my hat is off to you. Again, would not be here without my campaign staff. My finance committee, my donors, George and Barb Eidsness, Tim and Lisa Walsh, John and Kathy Woodward, Gary and Mary Margaret Wright, John Pritzloff, the whole Smethel family, Rich Sokol, Warren Cohen, Bob Murphy. There are so many other folks out there. Again, we'd be here all day if we ran through the entire list, but truly, if you'd have told me that I was going to raise close to $2.6 million in this campaign a year ago, I would have laughed. I'm a cop and a soldier. $500 is a lot of money to me. And so being able to just have that support, to have the resources to carry the message, to get us across the finish line again, truly, thank you so much. To my family, to my wife Ann, again, we've been married for over 15 years. She stuck with me through the military, through law enforcement. She never doubted this race. She was my rock the whole time. Would not be here without her. I love you, Ann. Thank you so much. To my two boys, Bruce and Sammy, 8 and 12 years old. We knocked on a lot of doors. We don't have to knock on doors for a few months. So just so grateful to my boys for putting up with all of the work that a campaign entails, and with Dad always having to take one more political phone call, go to one more event. So promise we'll do something fun as soon as we get a spare day. To my parents, to my in-laws, to the rest of my family, to my friends, everyone that helps support me, thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart. And then finally, this would not be complete without thanking God. As I've said multiple times through this campaign, I follow a three-pronged process when it comes to making decisions in these types of situations. My faith guides me. I follow the Constitution based on 22 years in the military and law enforcement, working daily in the trenches to uphold and defend it, and I listen to my constituents. So at the top of that list again is my faith, is God, and I just have to give the glory to God for getting us to this point, and ask for his continued grace and wisdom so that I can be the absolute best representative that I possibly can be for every single person in Colorado's 8th Congressional District. I am so excited. This is the honor of a lifetime to be able to represent this district in Congress, to be your voice, to continue the fight, to make us a safe, affordable place to live, to work, to raise families, to achieve that American dream that we all love, that we all know, and that we all treasure. So I am so excited to roll up my sleeves and get to work. Again, never hesitate to reach out to the office. We'll get that up and running as soon as possible. Thank you all for coming today. God bless you all, and God bless America. Happy to take questions.
President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, has said that the way to deal with mixed status families going forward is to deport everyone together, even those who have legal status here. I'm wondering if that's a proposal that you support.
Yeah, so when it comes to the border, we've talked about this multiple times through the campaign. We know we have to get that border security there, but we know that we also have to be humane as we look at these situations here. And so my first priority when we talk about border and border security is making sure that we are aggressively targeting those individuals who are not only just illegally present in the country, but who are also committing other crimes, violent crimes, who are stealing, causing other different criminal events to happen in our community. So that is where my first and primary focus is going to be when it comes to securing the border, and when it comes to making sure that we're able to restore a little bit of balance here in the United States, particularly with folks who might be here illegally. We've got to focus on the ones who are committing crimes in our community, additional crimes.
Does that mean you don't support family members who are here legally, or even people who are here illegally but not breaking the law, not causing problems?
I think, again, we got to go in priorities. Until the border's secure, I mean, deportations don't really do a lot. You can see any headline where somebody's been deported 5, 6, 8, 10 times. They come back, they commit another crime. So until the border is secured, you can't really move on to step two, because if you deport somebody and they want to come right back, they're right back in a week or two. So we've got to secure the border, step one. We have got to make sure that we are working to fix our immigration system. So again, so that those folks who want to do it right, who, as you said, want to come here for the American dream, have they're rewarded with a faster path to be able to do that for their dedication to following the law. And then for those folks who are, again, committing crimes in our community, we have got to aggressively prioritize those individuals first and foremost above anything else. So for me, I think we're at least 2 solid steps away from the situation that you've described.
How independent are you planning to be? I mean, how often do you think that you're going to go along with the other Republicans in the House and with the Trump administration? Will we see you being independent and going your own way?
Yeah, I think these are all questions where the devil is in the details. So you have to really dig into that policy, and you have to look into that policy. And as a representative for Colorado's 8th Congressional District, we default back to that previous metric that I talked about. My faith guides me, follow the Constitution, and I listen to my constituents. And so in order, that is how I'm going to be making my decisions. And so for those times where the district or my own personal experience differs from something, then we're going to have those conversations. But again, my decision-making process is faith guides me, follow the Constitution, and I listen to the constituency.
I'll throw another one at you. You spoke at President-elect Trump's rally in Aurora a few weeks ago. Stephen Miller, his deputy chief of staff, spoke there and called for an America that's for Americans only. And I'm wondering, looking at the demographics of the district you've just been elected to represent, what would this district look like if all non-Americans were deported, including, again, those with legal status to be living here?
Yeah, so America is the great melting pot. You know, I alluded to that earlier when I talked about my Hispanic heritage. My abuelito, my grandfather Chavez, was born in Mexico on my mom's side, the Calderon side of the family, one generation further. But I'm 50% Latino. I'm 50% Hispanic. My mom is from, she's a first-generation American, and so we know that is the promise of the United States. We are the great melting pot. We know what it says on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That is the American dream. And so I think all that people ask is that if you're going to come to the United States, you do it the right way. You come here legally. You come here to either be a contributing part of the American dream as an American citizen, or you have some other sort of legal status if you want to be a temporary worker or something like that. But we just ask that you follow our laws and that there's no cutting in line, and that those folks who want to come either as a citizen or some other legal status, that they do it legally, and that our promise is that we work to make sure that those folks who are committed to doing it legally have a process that is actually functional for them. I spoke to an individual on the campaign trail from Brazil. He's been waiting 17 years to legally get his citizenship here in the United States. And he says he's got probably another 4 years to go. That's over 2 decades. We owe it to folks who have that level of commitment to the rule of law to give them a more streamlined system by which they can follow our laws, do it the right way, come here and be a contributing part of American society, just as my grandfather was, who literally swore his life, 2 Purple Hearts. Twice he was injured in World War II, September of 1944 and April of 1945, to serve and protect his new home. Those are the folks that we want to come here, and at the same time as we're doing that, again, we have to make sure that those individuals who are illegally present here and exploiting and taking advantage of our community, we must hold them accountable.
Would you support policies that will separate families from one another as part of this mass deportation?
And no, I'm not a big fan of separating families.
Other Republicans have indicated that they want to go beyond just, deporting violent criminals, that they want to deport millions of others. Why is it so hard for you to say whether you support that part or not? You said you supported the deporting violent criminals, but what about the others?
Yeah, again, I think that's at least step 3 in the process. So step 1, secure the border. Step 2, we have to make sure that those violent criminals that are in our community are being held accountable. In the military, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority and nothing happens. Same thing in law enforcement. And so we have to make sure that we are clearly establishing priorities. And for me, the first 2 priorities are secure the border, and then make sure that those people that are illegally present in the community and are additionally committing crimes are held accountable. After we've got those priorities done, then we can absolutely continue to have that conversation about what do we do with the millions of folks who are present illegally in the United States, but who aren't committing crimes and who aren't really causing massive problems in our society. But again, because they're not causing major problems, to me, they're figuring out that path forward it's a little bit lower in the list of priorities.
So what would you say
La
to
comunidad latina votó por usted. ¿Qué es su mensaje para la comunidad latina que están esperando un cambio en este distrito?
Just a message to the Hispanic community. Yeah. Again, my story is your story. My abuelito is from Mexico, on my mom's side of the family, and so I've truly been privileged to live that American dream. I have my grandfather, my abuelito's early writings, where he talks about why he wants to come to the United States and why he wants to create that better life for his kids, my mom, and for his grandkids, me. And so providing that American dream to the Hispanic community, I know is what they want. Their story is my story. I've been out. I've talked to them. They want to be able to give that to their kids. They want to be able to see their grandkids do better than they did. And so that's why we have to work on making sure that we give a safe, affordable place for them to live, to work, to raise their families, that we reward work. The Hispanic community is a hardworking, entrepreneurial community. I've talked to so many minority business owners, Hispanic business owners in the district, and we have to make sure that we're rewarding that work and that we're not crushing them with high taxes and over-regulation, and that the risks and the effort that they take into building their businesses and to putting the work that they put into making their community better and their family better is rewarded and not punished. And so that's one of the things that I'm super excited to work on in Washington, D.C., is making sure that their work is rewarded, that we're lowering taxes, that we're lowering unnecessary regulatory burden, that we're creating a good environment and a good economy where that work is rewarded, and where folks can again live their best version of the American dream.
Beyond that message to the Hispanic community, we know that there's more than 30% of the Hispanic community that lives within the district whose top priority is families being separated. You mentioned that's a multi-step process for you, whether that's priority number 1, priority number 3. What would you say to them specifically who worry and have that as their number 1?
Yeah. Familia es más importante. Family is very important. This is primera. It's the first important thing. It's the most important thing. And so, for these situations, again, I'm not a big fan of separating families. I don't think that's the right path to go down.
Gabe, can I ask you a question? 2 years ago, the Libertarian candidate was blamed by some Republicans for losing the election for Barb Kirkmeyer. This year, that person got out in September. What's your analysis of how that dynamic played? Was that how important that was to not have that party in the race this year?
Yeah, and so that's an example of how we have focused so heavily on trying to pull together coalitions, focusing on what unites us rather than what divides us. And so I was very honored to sit down with the Libertarian Party and talk through these things and find those areas of agreement. And this was actually the Libertarian Party candidate's comment. He said, you know what, Gabe, I think we probably agree on like 90% of stuff. And so I was truly honored to be able to work with them and work with the pro-liberty community to be able to put together this coalition that I truly think was instrumental in getting us across the finish line and flipping this district. As you look around the country, you see that there's a lot of other razor-thin races where the Republicans and the Libertarians weren't able to work together. And so, I'm proud not just to be able to represent this district, but I'm proud because of the work that we did that hopefully is a national model for how the pro-liberty community, the community that supports individual rights and lower taxes and smaller government, rewarding work, public safety, all of the things that we agree on. I'm proud to be able to help to blaze that trail for how we can build those coalitions, work together, focus again on what unites us rather than what divides us.
The race 2 years ago was decided by like about 1,600 votes. We don't have final numbers here, I don't believe, but it looks like your victory might be maybe 2,000, 2,500, something like that. How does that reality I know you just got elected a few days ago, but how does that reality play into positions you take when you think that, in 18 months you're going to be deep in another campaign in a district that's now had 2 very close elections and, as several have noted, is extremely diverse?
Yeah, it goes back again to that 3-prong metric. Faith guides me, follow the Constitution based on 22 years of service in the military and law enforcement, and I listen to the community. Even as the challenger, before the race was called, I had the support of 15 mayors. Over 2/3 of the mayors in this district, sitting mayors, threw their support behind me because I'd had the conversations with them. I'd sat down, I'd talked to them, I'd listened to their issues, I've visited their communities. I've done the same thing with stakeholders, with businesses, with neighborhoods, all throughout the district. And so, to me, the fact that this is a very narrowly, it's one of the swing districts across the country, that means that you're just going to have to put in double-time effort to represent your district. And that's quite honestly what the job description is. You are a representative to the United States House of Representatives. Your job is to know this district, to talk to them, to speak to them, to listen to them, to be able to carry their issues to the forefront of the conversation and be able to advocate for those things that, again, are going to make their lives better. And so it's what I did as a cop, what I did as a state representative, where despite being in a super minority, I got almost 60% of my bills passed, and that's the attitude that I'm going to take to Congress. I've already talked to, just this morning, probably 10 different law enforcement and community safety leaders, multiple other different elected representatives, to make sure that we're hitting the ground running with those relationships, with those open channels of dialogue, to be able to, again, carry the voice of this district to Washington, D.C. and be able to advocate for every single person here.
How would you characterize how the lack of support from the state Republican Party affected the campaign, or did it not?
You know, in the Army, you play the hand you're dealt, not the hand that you wish you had, and so we've just been focused this whole time on carrying the message, putting together the organization, rallying the volunteers to be able to get that message out to the district. Again, focusing on those things that unite us rather than those things that divide us.
Do you have any statement for the state Republican Party?
Oh, I think that one's already on record.
One more.
Hey, Gabe, have you thought about what your first bill will be when you get to Congress? And did former President or President-elect Trump call and congratulate you?
I haven't spoken to President Trump, President-elect Trump, since winning the race. First bill, again, that was part of the reason that I was on the phone with so many different public safety leaders in our community, just to hear their thoughts and find out what is it that I can do for you and for safety in Colorado from that congressional level. And so one of the things that they pretty much all brought up to me was what we just spent a lot of time talking about. Right now in Colorado, it is illegal for state and local law enforcement to be able to coordinate with their federal counterparts to get violent criminals out of our community who are also illegally present here. And so the first bill that I'm planning to work on is a bill that is going to make sure that our law enforcement, state and local law enforcement, is again empowered to be able to work with their federal counterparts to get violent criminals illegally present in our community out of our community.
What is the second issue that you want to be focusing on?
Yeah, so we also need to be focused on cost of living and making sure that we are protecting and fixing our economy so that people can afford to live again. Did Jesse have-
Representative, one of the things that's united the congressional delegation, both Democrats and Republicans, is the opposition to moving the Space Command headquarters to Alabama. With Trump back in the White House, there's concerns that there might be a push to move it from Colorado Springs to Alabama. Do you have a position on that, heading into your first term, if President Trump tries to relook at the headquarters, will you oppose that?
Yeah, so I mentioned that my grandfather, the Evans grandpa, 20 years in the Navy, when he retired, that's what brought him to Colorado, was working in Colorado's aerospace industry back in the 1970s. And so we have a robust, thriving aerospace industry, and we need to keep that in Colorado. So yeah, count me in. I'm Team Colorado on that one.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
And that was Gabe Evans speaking about Yadira Caraveo conceding in the Colorado District 8 race. We have more election results on our website, cbscolorado.com.